Good evening, brothers, tourists, and ladies, and welcome to another episode of the Chapter House, the OGC's look at all of our various chapters across this great country of ours. Joining us this week is the Home Range Society of South Central Texas, South Central Kansas. And joining us representing the Home Range Society is Michael. How are you, Michael?
I'm doing great today.
Awesome. And witticism, how is the great state of Kansas this evening?
Pretty rainy today, but we're doing good.
Hey, even the plains need the rains, right? So, welcome. Thanks for joining us, guys. It's we're moving into, I think, what we officially call the second founding chapters, which are no less grand than the first founding. This is when we really started getting people kind of hearing about the Old Glory Club outside of our tight niche internet micro e-celeb circles. So, Michael, how'd you guys end up hearing about the Old Glory Club?
Yeah, it was actually the man who would become our secretary who told me about the conference. So he was following Academic Agent and Radical Liberation at the time. And so I think he heard about the conference through Radlib and perhaps, Dave, the distributist. And I had kind of been in the sphere at that point. I had followed John Doyle and stuff like that, and he was speaking that year. And so that's what put it on the map. And then it was just listening to the podcast and, good Mr. Canones. And that's kind of what got me spurred on to start the second founding here. It's kind of funny. Like, I'm obligatory 40K reference, right? Like, yeah, second founding, Space Marine chapters, right?
There's no avoiding it.
Yeah.
And,
like sitting over to my left over here. Yeah, there's some Space Marines sitting over there to the left, second founding. So
yeah, that seems to be a requirement of OGC chapters. So once we start putting in for official chaplains, that's when it's all over.
It's completely over at that point.
How about you? Is that like a similar story?
I had been making content on YouTube, and I had sort of ingratiated myself with some of the people around OGC. So I had been talking to Jay Burden and Praise of Folly, people like that. And eventually I said, all right, I need to go to one of these events, see what it's all about. So I went in 2023, and I felt like, yeah, this is something I want to do. So I didn't know anyone, so I started just looking, and I did a lot of basket weaving in that time, and I found some like-minded people, and found Michael, and we started up the chapter here in Kansas.
That's great. So both of you are founding members of the Home Range Society. What was it like finding like other men in Kansas? Was it something where Central had enough people that had reached out in Kansas to put you together with, or was it people you already knew?
Yeah, so I met Witticism through like a basket weaving Discord, and then that first time we met each other, I think we started talking about the Old Glory Club and if we could form a chapter. The other founding members were actually just friends of mine for the most part, people I'd gone to church with and known for a couple of years at that point. So those were our first 5 people.
That's great. Sounds like you already had some bonds going before you made it official, which is exactly what we're hoping for. And how's growth been since those initial 5? You guys took the plunge.
Yeah, it's been steady. Like we've been getting onesie twosies pretty steadily for the last while now. Actually, just with the recent events, there's been an upsurge, which is what you'd expect. So we'll have our work cut out for us, going through the process with some of those newer gentlemen who've reached out to us. But out here it's kind of funny. Wichita, not as big of a metropolitan area as some of our other chapters, especially those ones out there on the East Coast, right? And so we're a little bit more spread out geographically. We got a guy from that town over there. There's like three of them, kind of north of Wichita, over in the area between like Manhattan to Topeka, out that direction. So a bigger geographic coverage right now. But sooner or later, we might be, those guys up there might be able to have enough to do their own separate chapter with the people up there. So there's less need to travel all over the state when we want to meet up with each other. We'll have enough for something like that potentially, if that's the direction we decide we want to go.
Yeah, that's the ideal, and it seems to be something that's pretty common among the chapters. And I've probably said this before on the chapter house, but for our European friends, they don't really, unless they've spent time here, they can't really grasp just how large America is, and that goes for each of our states being the size usually of a fairly large country. But yeah, it's good to hear that it's in the light of the recent evils that there are men who are able to kind of take these things and realize that the time for building these communities, for having brothers that you can rely on and kind of commiserate with, is paramount. So I'm glad to hear that you're getting there is some good that can come out of this. But one of the things that you'd mentioned before we were on air, Michael, is that you have actually just returned home from basic training. Now, I think you are the first person I've ever spoken to who attended basic training under the Trump administration. So Trump administration part 2. And I'd really be interested to know, what's it like now that we have somebody who at least pretends to like the military in charge.
Yeah, it is fine. There's a lot to say. That like there are differences. It is starting to have an effect though. Even at like the low level we're at. I went in as enlisted, which various reasons for that. I'm going to be switching over here to officer, hopefully here pretty soon once I get things situated a bit and go talk to my commander. And then I'll have to go through OCS, and that'll be its own thing. But so like for people coming in, probably go officer first. But I don't regret the experience of going in enlisted, and the Army does need NCOs, so there is that. But there was a real big thirst, especially among the kind of senior enlisted, your staff sergeants, E6, your sergeant first class, first sergeant, all that. They had a hunger to turn things around. You could see it a lot in what they're talking about to us, and one thing that annoyed them to no end was that they had their hands tied behind their back in terms of discipline and getting rid of bad soldiers. So they had to basically, they're forced to kick the can down the road with soldiers that had no business being there, people that just didn't care at all, couldn't stand still, couldn't stand at attention, just the absolute basics of soldiering. People that lacked integrity, couldn't follow the rules of basic training. And so you could see that, like, that rot that it's set in for the period of the Biden administration and the whole 2020 COVID calamity, that really did a number on some of those like core pillars down at the low levels. But they were changing things around. One of the things that changed while I was in was the like near ubiquitous shaving profile. So many people, especially the ones you'd expect, right, had shaving profiles, and it's just one of those things that just like the appearance of all the soldiers is negatively affected by goofballs running around with like unkempt beards, and like, you give them an inch and they take a mile, is how it always goes. And then you'd even have other soldiers who are, have no, like, no genetic reason to need a shaving profile, like, some, white guy or whatever, basically scarring his own chin so that he can get a profile, because like they're giving that stuff out like candy. So that went away, and it's definitely for the better. It's just one of those little things
So you're saying,
that adds up.
so for the while we do have many veterans in the organization, for those who don't know what a shaving profile is, could you just let them know?
Oh yeah, sorry. It's a little medical profile, aka like a little medical permission slip, basically, that you have to carry around, that says that unlike every other soldier who has to maintain the grooming standard, you are allowed to grow a beard. So it's everybody is supposed to be clean shaven, and yet there is a lot of these soldiers with some sort of beard for really flimsy reasoning. Like I said, you could walk in with a tiny little scar on your neck or chin from cutting yourself on purpose, basically, and they would give you a profile to let you grow a beard.
That's interesting that they would give permission slips to people who are too stupid to shave their own face. I wonder what's happened to the ASFAB, that if they're allowing people who don't know how to shave in. But
Yeah.
there's always a bit of talk about the difference between wartime army and peacetime army. And traditionally, the peacetime army is much more tightly regulated. You have to have your hospital folds in your beds. You have to be well groomed. The discipline is focused on much more during peacetime than it is during wartime, when you're just trying to churn out men for the meat grinder. But we're not currently in wartime. So it is very interesting to hear that the Biden administration would allow these extremely lackadaisical standards even during peacetime, which I think speaks quite a bit to the officer corps. But you were saying that this culture was starting to change. Did you do one station unit training, or was it basic AIT?
Basic, then AIT. Yep.
Oh, okay. So when you were in, did you see the culture starting to change during your time in basic, or was it a little bit later?
It was right at the tail end, I would say, of basic, and then once I got to AIT, some of the changes started to make more of an effect. Because so I started basic basically right at the beginning of springtime, and I got back home here in the middle of August. So that's kind of the time frame, right? Like at the beginning, the stuff that, like Pete Heggs, that hadn't really been in long enough to change it. But as the months go on, you started to see it more. Another thing that changed, like right as I was leaving, is they revised one of the regulations, 350-6, which is based on it's basically the instructions on what the NCOs are allowed to do in terms of a corrective PT as smoking, right? So that happened like about a week or 2 weeks before I left. That changed as well, and we can get into that if you'd like.
You mean that the drill sergeants were basically allowed to do to smoke their guys when they hadn't been prior to that?
So they could before, but they had an arm tied around their back, and they were limited in how many repetitions they could do, the types of exercises, and they weren't like if you're familiar with the term, or if our listeners are familiar with the term, shark attacks, which is kind of like the classic Full Metal Jacket, getting a half an inch away from your face and shouting at you, right? They weren't doing that sort of thing, but with the revisions, those changes were gotten rid of, and so they can basically, from what I understand, do as much smoking, corrective PT as they want, and they can get right up in your face again. So definitely some changes that will help, I think, because there's a a lot of these people, especially, frankly, the foreigners and just people that I think our listeners know what I don't want to say too much, but just our minorities, right? Like they need that extra just fear, right? I think a lot of the problems came from the fact that there's people that basically didn't speak the same language as heritage Americans, and I don't mean sometimes literally, right? Like there's actual language barriers, which is crazy, but more, and they don't share that common cultural language. They don't share, like, there's no shame in letting down the group. They don't have it. They're just they're selfish, and it's so things that would, if you took a soldier from the past and you let everybody know that you've let the unit down, and like the classic kind of like Private Pile, right? Like he has the jelly donut, and so then the whole platoon is getting smoked while Private Pile eats his donut. Like, that kind of stuff used to be effective because the soldiers would have shame for letting down all these other guys. It wasn't the case. They didn't care. They have the whole company getting messed up because of one guy, and he wouldn't bat an eye about it. He wouldn't lose it. He wouldn't lose any sleep. And then where we were at too, they weren't allowing us. They were trying to prevent fighting, right? And so they kind of took away our own methods to maybe enforce discipline at our level, right? If somebody continually doesn't get with the program, you could beat them up in the shower, right? Like, it's kind of crude, right? But it's how things used to always work. And so many of those things, they just chipped away at it. It got longhoused. And so I think it's starting to change.
That's a good word for it. Even like as I'm listening, what I'm thinking is it's very feminine, and everyone who goes in says everyone who goes in says that when they were in, it was harder. Like basic was harder, but that actually seems to be true in this case. Which is, I'm glad that what you're saying is that things are reversing. I actually had a question for you because you mentioned the foreigners, and you don't have to say what MOS you're in, but are you in combat arms?
No. Again, yeah. If I were to go in and do it again, would I? Would I not? It's a tough call. I'm not a combat arms. I'm kind of on the maintenance side, and part of that, there's financial stuff, right? The guards got bonuses, so that was pretty.
I mean,
big.
the main question that I had asking about combat arms is the demographics.
Yeah.
Because there's this trope on the right, and I think it's very. I mean, there's truth to it that white boys join combat arms, and all the nons go into the support roles. And is this something that you were seeing reflected? In your training?
Definitely. Yeah, it was. I was a minority, big time. Like there's way more Hispanics of every different variety. Mexicans, Guatemalans, Nicaraguans, a few Brazilians. There was a handful of Africans. Got people from Ivory Coast. One from I think he wasn't from Benin. He was from one of the little countries right next to Benin. A couple Kenyans, Nigerians, if I didn't say that already. And some Algerians. There's a couple Algerians too.
Yes.
And Turks. It was a mess. It was a mess. You could name basically every part of the globe.
I mean, that definitely sounds like a mess. It's kind of frightening to consider that all of our logistical apparatus within the logistics branch is being run by people who, I mean, I imagine most of these people were foreign born. Is that accurate?
Yeah, they were mostly speaking foreign born. Yeah.
Okay, so you said the obviously the demographics are a nightmare, but the demographics are a nightmare everywhere right now. But you did say that the culture is kind of shifting back towards at least a little bit closer to what a military should look like. Um, for the guys in the OGC who are thinking about joining up, do you think that this cultural shift is going to be fast and far enough to make it worth their time? Let me put it this way: to worth their time, where they're giving up their years of their young life, learning some skills, but also getting into a kind of like a brotherhood traditionally. Do you think that that's still there? What advice would you give?
Yeah, I think it's tough. I think we'll see how things go with the remaining time that Trump has. I think it'll make a difference, but it's not, unless you see some like bigger changes, it's not going to have, it's not going to go far enough, I don't think. Like I said, I think that the officers, right, are the real, like, that's the real fight. I think it's going to take more to kind of change them, because you still see it a little bit, right? Like, again, it's, the culture's definitely shifting. Like, as the Army, it cares about preserving itself, right? It wants it. We various podcasts on the Old Glory Club, and Jason host have talked about this before, but the Army, as an institution, cares about the institution of the Army. So it doesn't like that it's getting soft. There's a lot of people that don't like that. So the natural drift of things is going to be tending towards whatever preserves it. So I think there's room to be like optimistic there, that even with, if the left comes back in here in 2028, it's not going to be hopeless even then. But for people that are thinking about it, I think what was said previously when the Old Glory Club had a talk about this, our own Paul Fahrenheit was kind of saying, probably do a shorter contract, or if you're going to do something, like go what I did and do the National Guard. It's a little bit, particularly if your state's more of a red state, you don't have to worry as much. The culture is going to be better. I see that myself here, right? Like the culture when I get back home among the other fellas here in the Guard, it's better for sure. So know what you're getting into. That's the big thing. Like it's not easy. The hardest part is dealing with all the people. It's no doubt about it. It's dealing with all the people. Like what the drill sergeants have you do, and what you're supposed to do. Any of our guys, if they're worth their salt, they're going to be fine. Like they'll do fine. So if you want to do it, I think the benefits are good. It's one of the few ways for people like us to get the government to actually work for you as opposed to against you at every level. There were instructors that were at this schoolhouse that I went to during AIT, former NCOs who had retired with the military in their early 40s, and then were working as instructors who pulling in 160K from retirement plus the job they're doing, and healthcare costs are much lower for them. If not, they get free healthcare. On those details, it kind of depends, right? But
yeah, I mean, it's good to hear that.
Yeah, there's still like a lot of the instructors. Sorry to interrupt. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's good to hear that the old adage that it's better to contract for the military than actually be in it is still running true.
Yeah, it sort of is. Yep. The other thing, just to kind of end it off, or maybe if you have other questions, go ahead. But you look for the areas where, like if you do join, don't just like, if you're going to join and make it your full-time thing, don't do the non-combat stuff, most likely, right? Although it's a hard case because the non-combat stuff transfers outside the military a lot better. But like for instance, while I was at AIT, there was the ability to go do physical training with the Ranger candidates. So RASP is the program to get into the 75th Infantry, the Rangers, right? And so there was a program to go work out, basically, to get ready to ship off to RASP, excuse me. And so even though I wasn't planning on doing that, I was able to go work out with that. And that environment, it's night and day difference, night and day. And so if you wanted to go do this, search out those units and groups that are going to push results and, just not care about the political side of things as much and being inclusive, or, the ones that are going to be excellent, right? You'll find a much, much, much better culture there. So that would be
I
advice.
like that thing that you said, that this is an opportunity for people to have the government work for you for the first time in what would be any living person's life, or at least any living heritage American's life. And I remember the worst part about basic was trying to stay awake during the sexual harassment training. So our guys can definitely do it. But no, that's good. So it's good to hear that you're going to be pursuing the officership, and I think that's, we, without getting too far afield, we talked about in our sphere how Obama gutted the officer corps, and really it's going to need to be rebuilt by our guys and guys who are like us. So no, this is all good stuff. I appreciate you sharing your insights on that.
Yeah.
But you also
it's a tough...
No, please go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna it's not without risk, right? Doing all this stuff, like, who knows what could happen. And but there is a certain aspect of, like you said, like, it needs to be rebuilt. And if it's not us, like, who else, right? Like, that definitely played into it when I was getting into and joining and up, was like, okay, it's funny because I actually signed up just before the election, so I didn't know, there was that chance that, like, Kamala could come in. We were all pretty confident, I think, especially, like, there's plenty of reasons to be confident, but there's that chance too. If it's not us, then who else, right? And so it's worth considering putting yourself taking that risk, right? Because it's kind of like a lot of stuff the old World Cup talks about, right? It's that adventure. It's that call to arms, so it's worth considering even despite the risk. And if you look at history, right, if we talk about the Spanish Civil War a lot, we talk about various, like the icon I've got here, right, the Vendée in France during the French Revolution. There's a lot of the guys that ended up fighting against the left came from within the military. Franco obviously is the easiest example, right? He was high up in the Spanish military before the war started. So that kind of stuff was in the back of my mind for sure when I signed up.
Yeah, and worst case scenario, or I should say best case scenario, your National Guard unit gets tapped to help put down some of the insanity in our major cities, especially if you're in a red state. But yeah,
Yep,
Michael, I appreciate you sharing that, because I know that we've got guys who, any hierarchical brotherhood like what the OGC is going to have a martial element to it. And the more men that we have getting in shape and getting to learn those skills it's going to be important. So I'm glad that you could have given us this kind of after action report on what the current Trump administration's basic training is like.
Yeah,
I
it's my
see
pleasure.
this other bit that you guys wanted to rap about a little bit. Um, Kayfabe. I'm sure everyone listening to this is familiar with the term kayfabe, popularized by our friend across the pond, or I should say acquaintance, academic agent, drawing from professional wrestling. Kayfabe is the story that is told. It's the myth behind the actions, and this is something you guys have a kind of a focus on.
Yeah, I'd say it's definitely like a personal um, interest of mine. Witticism. I don't know if you wanted to comment on, if you just want to kind of start it off and um, just talk about it a little bit.
I'll let you go.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So I think where it comes to me is I've just been the the distractions. I think is the best um, the best like reason why this is interesting to me, because I think we all see that with Twitter and just various just online spaces, YouTube and the rest of it, is like you can kind of get sucked into these loops where you're just going around in circles. Sometimes like literally just refreshing, or you're watching. You get sucked in these kind of grifter content, right? And I think that's where the kayfabe and then the idea of there's like the idea of the shoot, right, which is for like to get into the history of it, right? The kayfabe is like a carnival term for, as we all know, it's like about faking stuff, right? Then there's the idea of the shoot, which is somebody who breaks the fourth wall, so to speak, and comes out to the audience, telling the truth, presumably. And then there's another layer on top of that, which is called the worked shoot. So there's kayfabe and work is kind of like an idea of like it's fake, it's not real, it's a job that's like an inside job to, in the wrestling sense, right? Like one of the wrestlers is going to win the match, and that's what the work is. So then this third layer here is the worked shoot, which is basically faking. It's faking that you're telling the truth to break the fourth wall. It's intention. I'm sorry if I'm not explaining it right, but that's kind of the point, is that it's intentionally muddying the waters. It's this like this faking of reality and getting people stuck into the noise, getting sucked into the spectacle, and that's where it kind of starts getting metaphysical too at that point. And that's what's been interesting me. Just interesting to me is that metaphysical aspect of it.
Yeah, and I'd like to hear you elaborate on that. But I appreciate that we had to cancel last week for obvious reasons. But I appreciate this being a topic that you guys wanted to talk about, because there are so many horrible things that are beyond our control, and when we look at the administration and when we look at the state of things, it can become overwhelming because they're outside of our control. And you're absolutely right when you say that it's distracting. It's a distraction from what our focus is, especially here at the OGC, which is building up these communities, building up bonds of brotherhood, which all take place outside of the political realm. We're a fraternity. We're not an activist organization. We're not a think tank. And while we are men who are concerned with the state of society, we have to keep our laser focus on building the things that aren't provided for us by the state, by the nation, by what our parents could have taken for granted. But Michael, you had mentioned the metaphysical aspects of this, so please do elaborate.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's exactly like you say, right? Like the old Glory Club is trying to like take this balanced kind of middle path where we're we take everything that's coming in from outside. We have our podcast, and then we're converting that into something that's tangible, which is real connections between, men in a fraternal sense, or in that fraternal context, excuse me. And a lot of times, guys in our sphere in this whole glory, we get upset with other fellows on the right. Now, all of our people, we're great about not punching to the right, and that's going to continue to be the case. But behind the scenes, it's like, oh man, if only these guys would just stop, getting into unproductive conspiracy theories, right? That's one of the classic ones, right? There's so many people, especially in light of current events, that are really being awoken to the nature of the left, to especially the evils going on the left, the murderous, rage, that spirit of Cain almost, that murder your own brother, right? And so they're the kind of the scales have been lifted off their eyes. But where this comes in, right? Where this work shoot and all this kayfabe and all these professional wrestling terms, it's in the metaphysical side of it, it's all tied in. It's all right there. Is when, okay, somebody's been woken up to this, and then it's tried to suck you right back in by getting you sucked into some, right wing, but grifter sphere, or right wing but unproductive. So you think you're breaking out of some programming, you're breaking out of some leftist or some boomer liberal programmed worldview where you're kind of living in some spectacle, you're living in some false reality, you're kind of drifting through comfortably. And instead of landing somewhere productive, instead of actually getting out of that dynamic, that endless just like slop cycle, you just the spirits that are out there just grab you by the claws and just pull you into a new one, except this one is somewhat right wing, or it's more based in the truth, but it's still just some big pile of slop that's just in a cycle of never ending dialogue and chatter and drama. And this YouTuber is upset with that Twitter handle, and because they're not right wing enough, or they said this, or e-girls getting into endless, yeah, we had I don't know if there's a video by Homath recently about the whatever they call it, deservatives, these e-girl kind of stuff, where it's just, you get the point, right? It's all of this noise, and so that's what it is. It's like, it's just getting away from the endless slop noise cycle that's just talking and talking and talking, and it doesn't tend towards the salvation of your soul, right? That's it tends towards just gossip and pride and basically the concupiscence of the eyes, you might say, just colorful things and loud noises that are pleasurable to hear. And so you're
Yeah. No matter how tasty the scraps are, if you fail to act, you're still just pigs at the trough. But witticism, I know that you came to this through the online slop merchants, the same way a lot of us did. How do you feel being a part of the Home Range Society has kind of helped you navigate that?
I think, well, in terms of like kayfabe, OGC is like antithetical to that. It's the total opposite of that. It's seeing through it. It's getting in real life. If you want to say touching grass, I mean, it's kind of like, it's that. We don't get together and talk about, Villanova playing Penn State, and we don't cook up killer parlays on DraftKings. It's above that. We've moved beyond those types of things, and I think the OGC's, it's honorable that guys have sort of moved beyond that. And if you're out there screaming about, Sydney Sweeney's jeans or something, you've lost the plot. So that's where I'm.
Yeah, I like that you used the touch grass, which is kind of a neologism born of the internet itself. But the older generations used to, especially salesmen, used to use this phrase "press flesh," which I imagine, or I've come to understand that that means just shaking somebody's hand. So I mean, it's a little bit different than just getting outside, right? It's you meet somebody, you're in their presence, you look them in the eye. And this actually brings me to what the Home Range Society. What do you guys do to get together? Like, have you had any official like meetups where you have done activities, or is it mostly socializing for now, which is still a worthy end in itself?
We've done a lot of socializing. We haven't had an official event yet. It is hard to get everybody on the same schedule, and we are pretty spread far apart geographically. I did go down to Oklahoma and meet up with some of the Iron Loam gang and hung out with them at a museum for a day. That was pretty fun. The Phillips 66 Petroleum Company Museum, that was pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, as like Michael went off to basic training, and I've had a lot of personal problems going on. My dad died in late July, so I've just been busy.
Condolences.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we've all been there, trying to claw up, the activity and the engagement from the members. It's one of these things that I appreciate all of you and the other guests that have been a part of the chapter house, because we get to hear how people deal with member engagement, and a lot of the time it seems like just delegating responsibility to your members and being like, okay, it's your turn to make something happen, and this kind of goes into, Michael, what you were saying before about the military, right? So you're saying these foreigners who don't have our Anglo Christian values of being part of a collective, that these responsibilities don't mean anything to them. Well, we're not that, right? We're Americans. We're mostly heritage Americans, and that is something that I think every man in the Old Glory Club takes seriously. So we all have our growing pains as far as getting people involved, but we're young yet. So I think, from what I'm hearing, you guys have a good culture going already. So I'm looking forward to see what can come out of South Central Kansas. Now, there was one other thing you guys wanted to talk about, was a book.
Yeah. I've got another thing we can talk into here. It's a good little book that I just happened to come across about 9 months ago, I'd reckon, maybe a little bit before that, called Sins of Parents. It's written by Charles Hugo Doyle, who was a Canadian he was from Kingston, Ontario, I think. Yep, Kingston, Ontario. And the book was written in 51. So pretty dang old at this point. What is that, 74 years? And the reason I just wanted to talk about it was the fact that it was so prophetic. And in this Charles Hugo Doyle, he was a priest who was a pastor of a parish he was a pastor in Wainwright, Alberta. So middle of nowhere, Alberta. Sorry to my Canadians if I don't know where Wainwright is. So this man who, is disconnected from our current times by distance and obviously time and all the rest of it. And it just struck me how, like I said, prophetic so much of the book was, um, with just the simple wisdom of the past, the simple just traditions that have been passed on forever about how you raise a family, how you raise your kids, how to be a parent correctly and how to be a parent incorrectly, and how much of it was just gotten rid of. The Chesterton's fence analogy, I think, is probably the most fitting, right? Just how many fences were torn down in the name of what, like, liberation and sexual freedom, and just, oh, we don't need to do it like that anymore. We're fancy modern people. We don't have to abide by such Neolithic traditions. Um, we can do it our own way. We'll rewrite, or we'll reinvent the wheel. And how even in the 30s and the 20s, the 40s, the entire time there were individuals sounding the alarms on all of these things, and the book does a great job of just quoting them, and yet they're all unheeded. And then we see the 1960s happen, and we're living through the calamity of all of these changes today, especially. And so, yeah, it's just striking to me. It would be funny if it wasn't so serious.
Yeah, I think this is something that we on the right tend to run into a lot, especially, we see that that meme that leftists don't read. They just consume fictional television, and that informs their worldview. But we on the right tend to, or at least in the Old Glory Club, tend to read quite a bit. And one of the things that we run into again and again is that the the people of the past who warned against the excesses of liberalism all seem to suffer from Cassandra's curse. And Cassandra was a figure in the Iliad, one of the daughters of Troy, who was cursed to know the future, but nobody would believe her when she told anybody about what was going to happen. And so it's this repeating theme again and again of unheeded warnings that, had they been listened to, might have spared future generations the kind of trouble that we're going through right now. And worse yet, we're seeing it replaying with the current administration and the crop of supposedly right-wing congressmen. But that's beside the point. So you mentioned that this book contains a lot of good wisdom on how to properly raise a family, and this is something I tend to ask all the chapters. For the demographics of the chapter, are you mostly young men, or do you have mostly young single men, or do you also have a couple of family men in there?
Yeah, it's about a mix. It's a pretty, let's see. Actually, it's more, if I'm thinking about everything, it's more single guys, but I myself am married. I have a child. I've got one child and one on the way. Um, and then some of our other members, we have some younger single guys in their 20s.
Yeah, that's that is a trend. I mean, it which makes sense. The youth are kind of casting about, especially young heritage American men, looking for direction. And something I ask whenever this comes up is, do you guys have you guys taken any steps? Do you have any plans to look in on getting mentorship for some of the younger men?
It's been talked about, but we haven't had anything concrete yet. But it's probably going to be in the works. Is And it'd probably be ad hoc here at the beginning until we get something formalized.
Yeah, and so this is going to be a little new one here. You guys get to test out this question for the next year. Like, not like what are your concrete plans? What do you have like percolating? But each of you, Michael and Witticism, what do you guys hope to accomplish in South Central Kansas for the next year?
Yeah, I can go if you, or what is it? You want to start on that one?
You can go.
Okay. Yeah, I think for us, I think just getting back to our regular in-person meetings. So we had a pretty good stream of those there going for a while, but then obviously I left, and we like we said, we had some pretty important things going on around here that drove us away. But getting back into the regular pace of meeting up, once a month or at least, and ideally bi-weekly. That's probably my goal, and then because a lot of other stuff just comes down from is downstream of just regularly attending stuff, and like you said, delegating and putting people responsible for managing just even the meetings or anything like that. Go ahead. Yep.
Yeah, constancy is definitely it's something we all strive for, and it takes practice. So that's a great goal. Witticism, you don't have to. You could be pie in the sky on this one. I just want to get an idea of where your head's at. What do you want for the Home Range Society?
Oh, from a year from now, double the membership. Events planned out the wazoo. Everybody doing good, and just build a really successful community of really close guys who are all there for each other.
Yeah, laudable goals, man. Laudable goals. We at the Old Glory Club wish all of our chapters the best of luck on this stuff, and I hope to one day get out to Kansas in the future once again. I was there once before, and I don't feel like I really got to know it that well. So hopefully I can hang out with you guys when we're down there. We're gonna jump over real quick to the super chats. The first one from Solid Snake 1964, $3, just says, "First, yes sir, always good to have you." Rattling Saber for $5, sunflower supremacy. I have no idea what that means. You guys know what he's talking about?
Kansas is the sunflower state. So
Based.
we
Sunflowers are pretty cool.
Yeah. It's winter wheat. It's winter wheat and sunflowers. That's probably what we're most known for as far as agriculture is concerned. Like our flag actually. Our flag is loosely based off the Volga German flag. Our guys can look that up. It's the coloring scheme is pretty similar to what we did, and they kind of brought the winter wheat over there. So the Volga Germans were Germans, obviously, who ended up settling around the Volga River in like eastern Ukraine and Russia, and so they brought their wheat with them, and so that's what they grow out here in Kansas.
Yeah, and I gotta say, your guys' flag, the Home Range Society flag, is pretty killer. I really appreciate that one.
Yeah, that's what they told me. I like it.
And speaking of, the next super chat, Son of Haster for $5. What a fantastic flag! Amen, brother.
Yep, like I said, yeah, we got the Volga German, and then the heart with the cross is from the like my profile picture here shows. It's from the Vendée. So the Vendée Rebellion against the French Revolution. This is what they would use to identify themselves, and so that's where it's the Sacred Heart of Jesus, and so we put that up there on the corner.
Well, God willing, we do better than they did. Solid Snake 1964 for another $3. Central Kansas has some great sites to visit, FYI. Ellenwood has old western town tunnels still intact that show off how life in rural Kansas was like for mid to late 19th century to the early 20th. That's very cool. Have you guys been out to those places yet?
I myself have not.
Witticism?
No, I haven't.
Well, there you go. A little bit of exploration for you and the boys. Solid Snake, 1964, once again for $3. Three is a very good number, and seeing it appear three times is one of my favorites. Thank you, Solid Snake. Gotta ask, since it's in my profile emblem, what is your favorite coin or piece of currency? Also, sub to Witticism Substack and YouTube channel. Does great work. The Dave Ramsey videos are funny. So, what do you guys? What are your favorite coins?
Um, I should suppose probably something from antiquity. I'm not sure really, but it would be pretty dang amazing to have something from like a coin of Pyrrhus of Epirus. You know, we I don't know. That's just out there, but one of the old
Yeah,
Greek coins.
it's a very specific question. Witticism, do you got a numismatist in you?
Absolutely not. I have none of that.
Yeah, Solid Snake, don't worry. I have a 6-inch tome filled with currencies of the world that I sometimes have looked at, and one of my favorites is it's an Austrian gold piece that depicts one of their kings, although the name of the king on it is slipping my mind. But the French have had some good coinage going back. Um, Rattling Saber saving us from numismatism for another $3. Shaving discipline in the military is all well and good, but we should bring back Civil War facial hair.
Yeah, maybe during peacetime, right? But yeah, the it's everybody knows why they. Well, maybe not everybody, but it's for gas masks, right? So that's why they've made the
Yeah.
shade.
Yeah, unfortunately, or fortunately, we didn't have gas weapons during the Civil War. Though it probably would have been quite a bit worse if they did. Melon for $5. Congrats, not me, not you. I don't know who he's congratulating, but I appreciate it. Thank you, Melon. You're a friend. And finally, Althemplar for $2. He says, "Yo." So I guess this is in the vein of the Nathaniel Green Society. Hello, sir. Thank you for joining us tonight. So, guys, we're going to wrap this one up. Actually, it looks like Dawn Browning slips one in under the wire. She sends us a $20 super sticker. Hold on, it's still loading. I'm sure it's one of those hyper animated ones that she always sends. It is a samurai kitten with a trophy. Well, thank you, Dawn. You always know the perfect image to attach to all of our streams. So now, for real this time, wrapping up. Just one last thing before we get to the shilling. In your guys' experience with getting things together, what was the best, like the time that you sat down and thought, all right, this is going to be something, when you were getting your boys together?
Yeah, I think it's some of our in-person meetings, and especially when we started moving it to people's houses. Oh, you know what? Actually, one of the best memories was right when we were getting founded. One of the members from Central came out, and my wife cooked up a wonderful dinner, and we had all the guys over. Everybody was dressed up nice. I believe it was a Sunday. It was actually, now I'm thinking about it, and we had a really great dinner, and it was a really nice time to have a bunch of serious, dedicated guys that were actually making the commitment to try this, right, and to get involved and not just be online. And especially then, at that time, we were right at the beginning of things. Like you said, some of the second founding chapters. There wasn't that many yet, so it felt really good to have our little chapter out here in Kansas before some of these bigger states and these bigger metropolitan areas could get off the ground, we were already starting and getting the ball rolling. And so that was, I was really happy about that. We beat Texas. We got ahead of Missouri and Oklahoma. All of our local rivals out here in the Midwest and Central America or Central United States. We beat them. We got there first.
I mean, that's great. I'm always going to support a rivalry between regional chapters. So please, guys, one up each other. That's what we want to see. Also, that's extremely wholesome. Witticism, when you're sitting down with the guys and you're like, all right, maybe these are people I should be spending more time with. Like, what do you have a memory that really kind of stands out?
Whenever you meet anybody from this side of the internet in real life, you do have some doubts about it. You think, is this person going to be a Spurg? Are they going to be a schizo? Are they going to be a Fed? Is this a journalist? Stuff like that. But, you meet with people, and my experience with everyone associated with the OGC has always been so good. You get around these guys and you realize, wow, I'm in the right place. These guys are all really smart. They all share the same views as me. You open up pretty quick and you realize, like, okay, yeah, these are good, solid, quality guys, and I don't mind attaching my name to it. So, yeah, I didn't have too many. Great. Yeah, I didn't have too many reservations after just like a meeting or two, because I realized I know some of these people. Like, we had common connections and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, it's always important that you can find your people.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a really funny story there. I won't talk about it on stream just because it's too personal. But Witticism and I had a pretty close connection where we had, because we didn't know each other before, but then we're like, oh, that's funny. Like, I won't say anything else, but we're like, oh, we're way closer connected than I thought.
Yeah, and that's what you want, right? You find your people, and you realize, this is something I should have had all along. That's great, guys. I really appreciate you coming on. Michael, do you have any media or anything to shill before we go?
No, I really don't. I don't have a Twitter. Our chapter has one, and so I can check through that every once in a while. But
well, perfect. In that case, can you give us the name of? I mean, yeah, it's better. You were talking about staying away from the kayfabe, so perfect. Can you give us the title of that book and the author one more time?
Yes. So the book is called Sins of Parents, and it's by Charles Hugo Doyle.
Thank you, sir. And Witticism, we had an allusion to your channel. Could you let us know what that channel is and what you put out on that?
Yeah, it's called Witticism TV here on YouTube. I just make political commentary, and I've been slacking just because life has been really busy lately. But I'm trying to make more content as it goes. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I do have a Substack. If you want to find me on there, I do write longer pieces, and I post more on there definitely than YouTube. Editing is hard. For those who don't know.
Yes, it is. It takes a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely check out his Substack. There's good stuff on there.
Is that also Witticism TV on Substack?
Correct. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you, Michael. Thank you, Witticism, and thank you to the Home Range Society, our boys in South Central Kansas. Remember to join us every week for American Spirits, where an American myth, the American narrative, the understanding of what America is being examined, is being built, is being coalesced in a way that Americans once understood but was ripped from us. And the restoration of the American myth continues on American Spirits every Monday at 8 p.m. Join us tomorrow evening for Pony Express Radio, same time, 8 p.m. And next week here, Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, Nathaniel Green Society of North Carolina.